meeting to order for the Iowa City City Council formal meeting, January 7th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Burgess.
Here.
Mims.
Here.
Salee.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
Welcome to your City Hall, and we have a lot of faces out there that is joining us tonight. So Happy New Year. Hope that your year is off to a great start. We have some new counselors for their first formal meeting, so welcome again. Yes, and we're going to start the year off with a proclamation for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a pastor, humanitarian, and leader in the American Civil Rights Movement during the 1950s and 1960s, fought for racial and economic justice and is lauded for his nonviolent approach to civil disobedience. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to the advancement of civil rights and public service, he believed in a nation of freedom and justice for all, and challenged all to help build a more perfect union and live up to the purpose and potential of America. And whereas we are forever indebted to him for his contributions, and therefore it is proper and fitting to highlight the life of a man who has such profound impact on changing an entire nation. And whereas Dr. King recognized that everyone can be great because everyone can serve, and during his lifetime encouraged all people to serve their neighbors and their communities. And whereas Monday, January 20th, marked the 37th anniversary of the nationwide observance of the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday, and whereas in 1994, Congress initiated the King Day of Service, a nationwide effort to transform the federal holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into a day of community service grounded in Dr. King's teachings that help solve social problems while focusing on bringing people together and breaking down the barriers that have divided us as a nation. And whereas the City of Iowa City, along with other sponsors, are holding a day of service on Monday, January 20th, it will include service projects from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at various locations in the community. After serving, volunteers will enjoy a celebratory program at the Mercer Park Gym, including entertainment performances, a keynote speaker, and free lunch. King Day of Service is an important day to encourage each other to take part in service that will benefit communities and neighborhoods and provide a fitting memorial to the life of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 20th, 2020 to be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Iowa City, and urge our community to honor the memory of Dr. King, to put his teachings into action by participating in the King Day of Service.
Zachary Rochester is here to accept.
Good evening, Mayor Teague and City Councilors. My name is Zachary Rochester, and on behalf of the Human Rights Commission, it is my honor to accept the MLK Day proclamation. It has been 57 years since the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, when over 250,000 people gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial in D.C. to draw attention to the continuing challenges and inequalities faced by African Americans a century after emancipation. It was also the occasion of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. Standing here in front of you in 2020, we all know that in this country, in this community, we have work to do to address and overcome the inequalities faced by African Americans. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed that a person's worth should not be measured by their color, culture, or class, but rather by their commitment to creating a better life for all by living a life of service for others. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of racial equality, understanding, service, and social justice is an inspiration to all of us, and service to others is a bond that unites us and helps us to define a vision achievable by working for the common good. It is with this in mind that the City of Iowa City Human Rights Commission would encourage each of you to join us at Mercer Park Aquatic Center at 9 a.m. to participate in the MLK Day of Service and Celebration. For more information on that event and other events going on throughout the month in honor of this event or this holiday, you may visit mlk.uiowa.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. It looks like you have some people here with you from the Human Rights Commission. Would you all stand to be recognized, please? Thanks for all the work that you do. All right, we're going to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mim, seconded by Salih. Discussion? Seeing there is none, roll call, please.
Burgess.
Aye.
Mims.
Yes.
Salih.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes?
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
All right. This is the time in our meeting where it is community comment, and we welcome individuals from the community to come up and speak on an item that is not on our formal meeting. We do ask that you keep the comments to 5 minutes or less. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Janes, Iowa City resident, and I'm going to show a couple visual aids today. I'm here to talk to you about the act of killing the deer in Iowa City. You authorized White Buffalo to come in last year, and they've just finished up one of the rounds of mass killing of deer in Iowa City. And I wanted to show you some examples of their behavior, how they act, and what they think of this community, just to give you an idea of what's happening. Let's see. So first of all, one of their kill sites was located within Oakland Cemetery. Everyone knows this place. It's beautiful. It's serene. A lot of people go there to relax and to mourn their loved ones. White Buffalo decided to set up a bait site to kill our deer within feet of people's gravestones where they go to enjoy the day or they go to mourn their loved ones. So this is a picture in the circle there is where that bait site was, where they set up to attract deer, and then I'll show you later how they sit in their truck and wait for the deer to come by and shoot them. Again, these are hired guns that come from out of state, and they sit there in the cemetery waiting for deer to walk by, and then from that truck with a gun mount, they aim at over the tops of gravestones. So you can see right there, they're actually shooting over the tops of gravestones to kill the deer that they can find that come to eat the bait. Here's the kill site for Hickory Hill, again from a different angle from within the kill site, and you can see that, again, it's within feet of gravestones and the pathways through the cemetery. I think it's incredibly disrespectful that they set up one of these sites here, and just wanted to give photographic evidence of this. When they come overnight, they kill the deer, as many as they can get within a night, and this is what they leave behind. So there's areas of blood that has been soaked into the ground. This was just going there one Sunday. A given Sunday after the killing had taken place, and you could see that out in the sunlight there, and just again within steps from the graves, there's these blood-soaked areas where they've killed these animals. There's bits of tissue and flesh left behind. There's blood splattered on the leaves there, and it's just all rather disgusting. Here's a close-up of one of the killers that is hired. They sit in their truck like this, and they just wait for deer to walk by. These are not honorable hunters. These are not, I would say, men of good repute. They are sitting there and waiting for deer to walk by so they can shoot them in the head. They're out of state. We've seen license plates coming by through these areas from Montana, from Connecticut. They don't know our city, they don't respect our city, and they certainly don't respect life. I'm asking you to ask them not to return in February for a second round of mass killing of our deer. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And thanks for signing in and stating your name.
Hi there. My name is Matthew DeForest. I live here in Iowa City also. That's actually my wife.
Hello, Matthew.
Yes. I came to the meetings when this was being discussed, and I was just really surprised that it was agreed that it was going to carry on. This is what I found in Terry Trueblood Park. This is within 200 feet of a bait site. They had shot these deer. The one on the right has an obvious bullet hole in its head. They didn't even collect them. That was within 6 to 8 feet of a walking path. And this was in broad daylight. Who knows, probably the next day. So again, this is just the way that white buffalo seems to be behaving. And, I would just appeal to your reason. I don't understand how this was approved. There was no science behind it. It speaks volumes that White Buffalo is the only company or organization that does this, and they travel all over the country. If this was actually an effective method, it would be a boom industry. But deer populations are controlled not by shooting every deer. If there's deer in Johnson County, they're going to be in Iowa City. If you want to shoot them all every year, that'll work. But carrying capacity and eliminating food sources, people fencing their yards, not planting things that attract deer and make them thrive and have more babies. When they're killed like this, they're going to reproduce exponentially. If they continue doing this, there's going to be 5 times as many deer in 5 years as there are, when they're done. There's real science behind it, and none of that has been brought up in any of these meetings I've come to. There's been public comments with people who have degrees in other areas, but there's been no studies done. The only study of deer population was done by White Buffalo, who is the only company that shoots deer for a living. It just isn't reasonable. If there was, a real interest in a sustainable way to deal with the deer and live with the deer, then that would be money well spent. Hiring people to come and shoot deer out of the back of their truck, the only thing missing from that photo is the 6-pack. It's ridiculous. That's Oakland Cemetery. Beautiful place. So I very much hope that the council would reconsider having them back here and at least take them to task over this sort of behavior. I mean, I wasn't out looking for dead deer. We were out looking to see what was going on with the bait sites, and it didn't take very long. They shot them and just left them there. So anyway, thank you for your time, and
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Mayor, congratulations.
Thank you.
And council members. I'm Lori Crawford from Iowa City. This photo is really, I'm kind of out of order. Somebody else is going to speak to the fact that they weren't allowed to have salvage tags on the deer that you just saw for the reason that there were no antlers to retrieve and that the body wasn't able to be eaten. This was a deer that died in my yard, and you can see where his antlers came off. Excuse me, where the little round thing was is where his antlers were. They came off a few days before he collapsed in my yard. This was a bow shot deer. But my point is that I was allowed to have a salvage tag. And he, let's see if I can do this. Allison, is there?
Yeah, right arrow.
Okay. Whoops. Oh, I don't want to use my time. Anyway, he was emaciated there in the next photo, which I can't show you right now. You can see the infection, and it took him, thank you, about 6 weeks to die after he was shot by the arrow. But again, my point is the salvage tag was permitted. The second point I want to make is, it's okay to, oh, there it is, yeah. So you can see how emaciated he was, and that I was allowed a salvage tag. I'm concerned about the secrecy and the limited involvement by the Iowa City Police Department. I consider these to be safety issues, public safety issues. I was told the city doesn't have a list of private property where deer are being baited and shot. I consider this to be a public safety issue. The city thought it was important enough to list for us the parks, the cemetery, and the University of Iowa listed areas where the deer were going to be killed, but we aren't allowed to know the private properties. I'm wondering if public safety is only matters on public property in University of Iowa, or whether we have concerns also on private property. I'm also concerned that I don't know the answer to this, but if taxpayer money is being used for the sharpshooting on private property, I think we have a right to know where that's occurring. I think the city should know, and I think citizens should be permitted to know. As far as I've been told, Iowa City Police Department isn't supervising the people that are using the weapons inside city limits. I was told that they're told every day where White Buffalo is going to be doing the killing. They're told the general vicinity. They aren't even told specific areas. So I don't know how the police can police these people if they don't know where they are. The city also has no knowledge of the names of the people who are hunting, killing, I should say. They don't know their background checks. They don't know if they've done proficiency testing. Yet these people are free to bring weapons and use them in our parks, cemetery, and neighborhoods. A felon was permitted to hunt in Cedar Rapids because he wasn't properly vetted. He was removed from the hunt when I reported him. We have shooters moving freely into our parks, cemetery, and neighborhoods without police supervision. That seems very concerning to me from a public safety issue. My third point is killing in parks is going to drive deer more into residential areas. So I predict that you're going to be getting even more complaints from people about deer in neighborhoods. Early on, I suggested that we set aside parks and green areas as safe places for deer to reside as a way to move them out of residential areas. So the step that we're making right now, I predict will move them back into residential areas. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Hi, Lori Kendrick. Congratulations, Mayor
Appreciate it.
Teague.
Thank you. Good to see you, Lori.
Yeah. So, as you can tell, the consensus among the animal welfare people is that Dee Nicola shot deer at Cherry True Blood and left him there. From the beginning, if there was going to be deer killed, I stood firm that I would rather have them sharp shot than bow hunted. So my knee-jerk response when the deer were found on the weekend of the 7th of December was that it wasn't Dee Nicola's deer. So I called the Iowa City PD, and of course they wanted to go retrieve the deer. And I said, not until we're there with you, because at this point we don't trust the officials. Everything's been done with a lack of transparency. Everything has been to protect the killing of the deer, to not be fair for the people that are concerned, that are just wanting to know what's going on with this project. And furthermore, what's going to happen when bow hunters come in. So it was a week before we could get out there with the police department to retrieve the deer. At that point, they bagged the deer up and took them to animal control. Immediately, I requested salvage tags for those 2 deer. I was told by Erica Billerbeck with the DNR that yes, I could have tags as soon as they were finished with the investigation. So I called back daily, and nobody knew what was going on. Then Erica said, no, Iowa City PD would issue the tags. So I contacted them, talked to Bill Campbell. He said, no, Sheriff's Department. Called Johnson County Sheriff's Department. I talked with Sheriff Adolph. No, that's DNR. So I was right back full circle to Erica. And she said, well, we're still trying to figure out what happened there. But as soon as everything's settled, you're the first person we'll contact. Yes, you can get tags. So I kept calling, And ended up that the DNR picked the deer up from animal control and decided, oh, they're so decomposed at this point, there's nothing to salvage, so no, we're not going to issue you salvage tags. Furthermore, we have no idea whether the deer were shot or not. If they were shot, maybe somebody else shot them and brought them into Terry Trueblood. And the entire thing is a fiasco that nobody knows what happened to those 2 deer, where it happened, when it happened, why it happened, how it happened. And this is a supposedly tightly organized professional project. So what's going to happen when we have amateur bow hunters just everywhere in town? An 18-year-old can go buy a bow and arrow and go pay his ticket to kill a deer. He can't drink a beer when he's done to celebrate it. Why? What's going on here? And why is it being so protected? Why don't we know what happened? We don't deserve that? And private property hostas are more important than a family on a fun outing to see nature at Terry Trueblood or Hickory Hill, or a loved one at the cemetery to visit their deceased loved one? We don't get a trigger warning. Splattered blood, guts. We don't get that. We don't have that benefit. But that's what we get to deal with so that somebody's hostas are protected? Please reconsider.
Thank you, Lori.
Hi, my name's Carol Rocco. I live in Iowa City. I'm not a public speaker. I wanted to comment. I was with Allison and Lori at Terry Trueblood on the 21st, and we went out to see those deer. And the one on the east side of the trail had been decomposed, but you could see that there was an entry wound on its back. The one on the west side of the trail that was by the river, you could see that there was a bullet hole underneath its right eye. And when the police officers came out, I believe they recognized that. We talked with them about that, and it was a clean. You could see it. You could see the exit. The exit wound. I find this whole thing completely emotional, and I don't understand why it's happening. And I don't believe that this is serving the public. I believe this is serving a special interest group, and I hope you reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Mayor Teague.
Hello, Brandon.
And welcome new councilors. You certainly have big shoes to fill. I believe Jim Throgmorton had size 12, and Rockney Cole, I think, was about a 14. So good luck.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Brandon Ross. I'm here at the beginning of the year to propose that the city focus hard on a couple of issues that I feel are major. They're national, they're global. One is naturally global warming, and the other is equality, which I think should be a major thing in the forefront of our city. And I had a friend who is in nursing school, and he's been going to nursing school, and he lives out of his van. And I said, "Why are you living in your van?" He says, "Well," he said, "Iowa City is unaffordable." And I think that affordable housing should be a major thing that we should focus on for this year. So global warming, I mean, we hear this every day. We've got things. We have to move faster than we're moving. We are doing things in the city, but we have to go faster because it's coming faster. I would say a couple of other things. Adam Smith is considered the father of capitalist economics, and he believed that if there could be a free market, that there should be a free market that was free of monopolies and also of landlordism. Now, he didn't believe that there'd be zero landlords, but he thought that that would go by the wayside. And I think that in our town, landlordism is something that has to be dealt with. And I think that if you're a capitalist or a socialist or something else, I think it's something that we know. He also used this expression once in his book Wealth of Nations, which was the invisible hand, which is often abused by economists who believe that the invisible hand meant that just let the market do everything be cool. But he didn't mean that. What he meant was that when the market failed, as it would probably do, he didn't think it would be perfect, then provisions would be made for the poor and the aged and the handicapped and the injured, and that there had to be an agency for that. And that agency is you and the rest of us. So that he believed strongly that a government would be in place, not just everybody just goes wild. So again, and I would just, in the same vein, I would mention that another great economist, Karl Polanyi, who wrote the book The Great Transformation, had said that if everything is in the market, even the environment, if the environment is commodified as to made something that could be bought and sold, he said, eventually the environment will be destroyed. He wrote this in the 1930s. So I would say to the City Council to focus on these two areas. One is the equality and helping people who are working class, poor, who may be older, artists. I spoke to a friend in San Francisco, and he told me that the music scene was dead there. And I said, why is the music scene dead? And he said, because the landlords ate it. Okay? We have festivals here, which is great for the middle class and everybody, but do we take care of the artists on the ground and provide affordability so that they can create and have expendable time and expendable energy and expendable money? So I bring these points up because I think the council has a job to be a buffer between capital, which is always bearing down. Capitalists want you to do what they want. They want to build buildings. They want to make money. They want to do everything. And the people who make up the vast majority here. And as I look here, I want to say this is really something that we have 5 women on the council and 2 men. And I believe that's the first time that's ever happened here. And I just want to congratulate you and the city for having this. And I really believe that women are great communicators, better than men. I often think that in the police force, the women should be the only ones to have the guns. The only ones. And the men should not have the guns. They should work on their communication skills. So I just want to say, welcome to the council, 2020. Let's have a great year. And yeah, work on inequality and global warming issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Hello, Council. My name is Vanessa Fixmo-Arise, and I had correspondence in your packet, but I thought I would just read it if that's okay.
Will you please sign in?
I will, yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Vanessa Fixmo-Arise. I'm going by V these days, but I'll state that for the record. So I am chair of the Housing and Community Development Commission, and I've been really honored to be in that position. I've really enjoyed the commission. And I just wanted to read this letter, so I'm just going to read it. So, dear council members, I'm writing this letter as a narrative companion to the memo staff sent regarding our request to a joint meeting. As you know, the Housing Community Development Commission, HCDC, has been working with staff and agency representatives on reevaluating and adjusting the aid to agencies funding process over the course of the last year and a half. We are striving for 3 goals. 1, to adequately and consistently fund our human resource agencies. 2, to provide a clear, transparent, and fair application and selection process. 3, to align City Council's goals in the City Steps Consolidated Plan with the funded services our human resource agencies provide. In the recent memo sent by staff, you'll note that there have been a range of budget requests from the Agency Impact Coalition, AIC, which I think several of you are familiar with. All of the organizations have come together. Most of them have. Please note that these must be taken within context, these numbers. This past summer and fall, I was fortunate to be able to attend 2 meetings held by the city manager and his staff and AIC representatives. And during the course of these discussions, a variety of factors were discussed, such as the larger timeline and budget the city works within, and the budgeting process for each department, which was very helpful. The AIC representatives were able to voice challenges that specific agencies are facing, such as a growing at-risk population and disinvestment from state and federal funding sources. While these meetings were enlightening and informative, one issue has loomed large and remains: how much funding is enough? Something you're probably familiar with. The AIC includes several agencies, and they have worked hard to ensure that each agency is accurately representing what they need. Much like any budgeting process, this negotiation period requires a bit of back and forth between agencies and communication with city staff and the commission. Hence, the HCDC does support the final budget number that the AIC requested at our last December 19th meeting of $675,000. I would also like to remark on the person-to-person relationships that the Commission has been fortunate to build with our human resource agencies. Several times this year, we have experienced people in the room talking about valuing our agencies beyond the numbers and budgetary figures we encounter every year. These people, our people, are providing essential services by saving lives, creating more dignity in our town, and making Iowa City and Johnson County the vibrant, equitable, and diverse place we all want it to be. And for this, we are filled with gratitude. I am deeply appreciative of the work that city staff and city council members have invested in improving the aid to agencies process and funding source. And the Commission looks forward to discussing this at your earliest convenience, which I hope to have that discussion later this month, or at your earliest convenience. So thank you, and congratulations again, everybody on there.
Thank you. This was a part of our consent calendar and earlier discussions with council, and we have agreed to meet with ACDC.
Cool.
So thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is impromptu, but what the hell?
You'll have to state your name.
Hi there, my name is Megan Alter, and congratulations to everybody at the 2020 Council. Very excited for this, for you all. I just want to take this opportunity, both as a member of the HCDC and then also the South District Neighborhood Association, to put forth a general comment and a general plea that Council and the various commissions attend to the needs of the South District. It's a vibrant place. It can use more support, and especially with the news of Amazon coming in, I think that there is real opportunity for neighborhood betterment and community building that can really help the existing residents as well as people who are going to be coming to work there as well. There still is a retail desert there. Even while we do have grocery stores, there needs to be better transportation. There's going to be many people who are going to need to get out to the warehouse, right, who may not have a car. As we are also trying to figure out climate change action, we don't necessarily want a lot of cars up and down. Amazon, as it is going to be creating some more of that vehicular traffic. So I just encourage council to sort of think of this holistically. I know that through budget discussion, there's been a lot on looking at the whole picture. And so I just want to remind and ask council to consider the South District as a part of that, because I think that there are some very key ways that helping bolster that area of town can really further your strategic plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Seeing there is no one else. All right, we're going to end public comment. We're going to move on to item number 9, planning and zoning matters. And this is 9A. And this is rezoning American Legion Road. Ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 35.29 acres of land located north of American Legion Road and east of Eastbrook Street from county residential R zone to interim development, single-family residential IDRS zone to REZ 1909. And this is second consideration. Could I have a motion to give second consideration?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. Discussion?
Just a reminder to maybe to our new counselors and to the public that this is just to an interim development, so it'll have to come back again for another rezoning before anything is actually built out there.
Roll call, please.
Burgess.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Item 9B, zoning code amendment related to utility scale ground-mounted solar energy systems. This ordinance amending Title 14 zoning related to utility scale ground-mounted solar energy systems, ZCA 1905. And this is to pass and adopt. Can I get a motion to pass and adopt, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Salee. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Item 10, Spruce Street Water Main Replacement. This is a resolution approving the project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Spruce Street Water Main Replacement Construction Project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Password. Kelly will help you. Joe Welter. I'm with the engineering division and have a short presentation on this project, which is to occur on Spruce Street over by Sycamore Mall. The intention is to replace existing 6-inch cast iron pipe with a new 8-inch PVC pipe. It's about 900 linear feet of pipe. The existing pipe is 1950s and 1960s pipe. It has a history of breaks. We are using trenchless methods to limit the amount of surface disturbances. So there'll primarily be 3 pits along the way, and most of the rest of the way will be done with smaller connections of the 23 houses that are served by this. The new services will go through the right-of-way, so up to the edge of the right-of-way, each of the 23 services will be replaced. New ADA compliant ramps will be put in on the west side. The project's on the west side of Spruce Street primarily, and so that area will be getting new ADA compliant curb ramps. You can see the general schedule that we're doing here. So we intend to open bids with the council's approval of the project manual tonight. We intend to open bids at the end of January, start construction at the beginning of March, have a substantial completion date at the end of April and a final completion date at the end of May. That corresponds, end of May corresponds with the seeding deadline. The opinion of cost is roughly $280,000. And for those that are in the public that are interested, the design was done by Watersmith Engineering out of Muscatine. Brad Roth is the president of that company. His contact information is up there. My contact information is also up there. Any questions for me?
Do you know how long this project will be going on until it's done?
How long the construction will be? Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically beginning of March until end of May.
And is this going to interrupt the service for the residents around the area, or how does this work?
So we have the westbound lane will be closed. The eastbound lane will still be open and allow access, local access for the residents. There will be detours. I actually do have a slide on that. There will be detours around using friendly pine and deforest for residents to get around that. Sycamore Street is right there on the east side of this as well.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else from the public who would like to address this topic? Seeing there is none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by Ma'am, seconded by Thomas. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Salee? Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, item number 11, McAllister Boulevard, Gilbert Street to Sycamore Street improvement. Resolution approving a project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the McAllister Boulevard Extension Project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notices to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipts of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Now I have to figure this out.
Can you repeat louder, please?
I'm Melissa Clough. I'm with the Engineering Division.
Hello, welcome.
No.
Yes, Melissa. That's what she said. I think. What? Her name is. She said Melissa. Yeah. Melissa. Thank you.
There we go. I'm working on the McAllister Boulevard Extension Project with the Engineering Division. Again, my name is Melissa Clough. This is a quick overall aerial of the project. It will include new construction from Covered Wagon Drive to the existing Sycamore Street roundabout. Traffic signal installation will occur at the intersection of South Gilbert and McAllister. Improvements include new sewer, water main, fiber, and street lighting to serve future development. Street lighting, permanent street lighting will occur at Covered Wagon as well as at the future Russell and Armstrong intersections, and improvements at the Sycamore roundabout. We have two twin culverts installed to provide drainage through the existing property, and then a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the south that will connect the regional trail network.
Up here is the typical section. We have a 100-foot right-of-way with the addition of a 20-foot center median. This median was added based on conversations with the consultant that's working on the form-based code for the South District. We have 11-foot vehicular travel lanes with potential for future street parking when development occurs. We have a 6-foot bicycle lane between the travel lanes and the future street parking, a 6-foot sidewalk on the north, and the previously mentioned 10-foot sidewalk on the south. Trees will be planted with the project in the median, and in the parkway, they will be planted at the time of development. Here's the plan view. We're developing full intersections at Armstrong and Russell for future connections during further development of the property. We have future right-of-ways shown. You can see it over on the right for future right-in, right-out neighborhood connections. Water and sewer connections at these full intersections will be extended to the right-of-way for an easy connection during development. And then the future parking areas are also dashed on the north and the south, and they will be located between the storm sewer intakes. So those will act sort of as bump outs and buffers. We also have a field fence at the request of the property owner at the south that will be installed at that right-of-way. For phasing, we'll construct in 2 phasing plans. We'll begin at the east with the new construction on McAllister from Covered Wagon towards Sycamore. Starting in June, we'll have a complete closure between Gilbert Street and Covered Wagon. We have the existing roadway out there. About a third of it has some cracked panels that we will be replacing, and we will be taking advantage of that closure to connect to the existing, expand out to our new section. Pedestrian and vehicular detour will be provided at the time. And then as far as estimated costs, construction costs is about $4.3 million for a total cost of just under 5.2. The schedule, it's been in design for a little while. We had anticipated construction this past summer, but due to the South District form-based code, we revised that section and worked with that consultant. We're completed with acquisition, and our bid letting will be at the end of this month, with construction beginning in April through the end of November. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Melissa. Is there anyone else that would like to address this topic? Seeing there is none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to approve.
Seconded.
Moved by Salid, seconded by Burgess. Discussion?
I was a little surprised to see the mention of the traffic signal at Gilbert Street. I know we just recently, not too long ago, put the 4-way stops there, which seems to have helped to control the traffic. Has there been issues, or is there a reason we would go to signals then?
I think we put the stop signs in as an interim measure.
Okay.
There were some concerns. We had a rezoning proposal there a few years ago that failed, and there were some concerns raised during that rezoning about traffic controls there, and we had mentioned that this project was coming up with the prospect of signals, but the council and the public didn't want to wait that long, so we put the stop signs in as an interim measure.
Okay.
Well, we had a letter earlier this evening from a resident on Langenberg, so this really is going to be the remedy to the through traffic that's currently running through on Langenberg. So I think we're all looking forward to seeing the construction McAllister. So this is a major step, and this extension will be kind of one of the main corridors running through the South District with mixed use proposed at the corner of McAllister and Sycamore. So that's part of the form-based code concept of creating a neighborhood commercial center in that way that we often like them, which would be more kind of pedestrian-oriented. So I'm looking forward to seeing this project completed and then the eventual development following the form-based code that it will serve.
Yeah, I think the community's waited for a long time for this. I'm not convinced it's going to be, I wish it was going to be the solution to Langenberg, but I think when this was presented as an arterial street and it going more to a collector type thing with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, I'm not convinced it's going to be the solution. I'm concerned we're going to continue to see the problems with Langenberg because it's going to be a little bit more direct route to where people are going on some of the east side. So, but that's what the council's decided, so we'll see.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes?
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Yes.
Item number 12, repeal rental permit moratorium. Ordinance repealing ordinance number 19-4793, a temporary moratorium on new rental permits for single-family and duplex units. First consideration.
Move.
Second.
Moved by
Sally.
Salee, seconded by Mims. Discussion?
Did you want to have allow for public comment?
There is no public comment.
We can do public comment. So I'm going to open public comment.
It's not a public hearing, it's just public.
Just public comment.
Yes.
All right.
My name is Bruce Ayati. I'm in North Lynn Street, Iowa City. So I spoke last time a little bit more about my specific situation, and we're still working on that. I was hoping to make some general comments, perhaps provide feedback from my perspective to how things went. The first is when I look at my neighborhood, it wasn't placed there by some deity, and we all happen to stumble in, let's say like a forest or whatnot. It was built up over time by a lot of little people doing little things. And that's why even compared to newer developments that aim to mimic it, let's say like the Peninsula neighborhood, doesn't capture the essence of that, of this community and of the urban layout. We have stately homes in close proximity to much more modest homes, and those all occurred because of a much more organic process. And that came about, as I said, by little people doing little things and taking care of that neighborhood in which they live. The ordinance that are being developed to address some, legitimate and serious concerns, I'm afraid have the effect of a spider web in which little things get caught and all the big things get through. You have individuals who, or entities who have, who work on it full-time, can get around your ordinances, and if they can't, they can hire a lawyer, and if that doesn't work, they have the ear of the legislature. And that, a very preventive, defense-only approach, I'm afraid, is not going to keep my neighborhood as vibrant as it can. You really, I think, need people who, for whatever reason, have developed a deep affection for the place and want to put their own resources and their own energies towards that. And so when you consider your regulatory systems, to keep that in mind. Because I'm not sure that's come. You see a problem. I've been there in my own line of work, and you hyper-focus on something, and that issue becomes, and that example becomes the dominant, and it's a sort of a one-size-fits-all. In terms of things that are a little bit more concrete, one of the remedies was the parking, and I understand where that comes from, but I think it's an example of the kind of homogenization in terms of your mental model of the neighborhood. even compared, if I go into, I have a dog, walk my dog, drive through the Peninsula neighborhood, despite the efforts of the developer to create diversity in the housing in that area, lot configurations are very standardized. They're very FHA oriented. In the north side neighborhood, these lot configurations are not homogenized. And so you can go in, you can say, well, we're going to put a limitation 9 feet here, 9 feet there, 4 feet here, whatever, and that's wonderful. And, for the most part, it'll work. But it'll cause perhaps problems that a more straightforward solution might not. Or maybe, and even with straightforward solutions, you have hidden assumptions. You have to think of that. In my own field, I'm a mathematician. We refer to things as elegant solutions. Computer scientists have the same notion. In this case, there's something that, various new urbanists here and there like to use parking maximums. It strikes me that a parking maximum would have gotten to the quick of the issue. When I read the descriptions, the issue was, oh my God, we have five cars here, 4 cars here, 6 cars here. Well, if underlying it, if the problem was that there's too many cars on people's front yards, you say, well, don't park 5 cars, you can only park 2 on your front yard. And will there be situations where people really shouldn't even have 2 on their front yard? Well, yeah, but I think you've now cut down the number of egregious issues small enough, and you have a regulation that isn't going to cause problems for individuals whose lot configurations are maybe not what was modeled in your head when you wrote that ordinance. So again, I hope you vote to repeal so that those of us trying to invest in our neighborhoods can go forward and do so. But also, as you go forward with these regulatory structures, to think about the effect on people whose full-time job is not to figure out how to get around them, but are rather trying to do the best they can within the rules. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Carlson. I live at 1002 East Jefferson, and I'm not very good at getting these labels off. Good evening. I am asking that you limit the number of bedrooms in single-family detached houses to 4 in the RNS 12 zone. This is the number allowed in single-family attached houses and in duplexes. Although apartment buildings can no longer be built in our neighborhood, I call attention to the fact that where they are allowed, 3 bedrooms is the limit per unit. Regulating the number of bedrooms seems to be a normal occurrence. We have experienced a lot of redevelopment in our neighborhood. I called your attention to the map that I have given to you, which details many ways of increasing density while being compatible with the structures and densities in our neighborhood. As all other types of rental units have a limit on the number of bedrooms allowed, I don't believe asking for a limit of 4 bedrooms for single-family detached houses is unreasonable. Instead, it helps provide a playing field that both the developer and the neighborhood understand and respect. Please support placing limits of 4 bedrooms for single-family detached houses in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Also discussion?
Well, I'm going to support lifting the moratorium. I think our original intent was to have the moratorium until staff had an opportunity to come back to us with any solutions or new regulations or changes that we could make. That's been done. I think at the original time, I know at least a couple council members wanted the moratorium only 6 months, and staff, I think, wanted 10, and we compromised to 8. We don't have anything before us at the moment that will make a regulatory change within the next few weeks, and so I think we should follow that initial direction, and that is to end the moratorium now that we don't have anything imminent in terms of changes.
Yes, I think, if we talk about the rental cap itself, it's being done by the city and the council to do this. But since last spring, the city has been prohibiting from doing so, and also we did this so the city can come up with another solution to help everyone. But last time I encouraged to defer it because people still come to me and send me emails and saying that there is some solution, we have to look into it. And I thought people would come up with really solution for this, and we give them the chance. I just see that the city now try to do a lot of things from the radon testing to the single family site development. I think some of the parking regulation and all this will help reduce the fear for the people, but I just think that it is time, and I will go ahead and support the rebuild.
Well, I just want to try to briefly summarize, what took place since we started listening and hearing this issue. Back in December, for the new councilors, I did prepare a memo to the council suggesting, in a sense, what I think Bruce was referring to, the notion that as I began to look at it more deeply, it seemed to me that trying to rely simply on regulatory frameworks to achieve the outcome we were after was not going to accomplish our goal. Trying to prevent, in other words, something from happening rather than what I tried to explore in the memo was how can we promote what we want? What is it we want? What are the obstacles to achieving it? And trying to develop a more comprehensive program to that end, which may include, and I suspect would have to include, more than a regulatory framework. And so that was the content of the memo, and I hope, Laura, you and Janice have an opportunity to look at it. I still believe that if you look at any neighborhood revitalization program in historic neighborhoods, they typically have an array of features to them to try to promote that revitalization. In the last couple of weeks, I did reach out to Bruce, didn't make contact with Bruce, he was out of town. But I also talked with Thomas, and I'm hoping the potential impacts on Bruce and Thomas will be resolved over the next month. I will be supporting this tonight. But I did, in the interim, look at the codes for Ames and Cedar Falls, which are the two kind of equivalent, met with staff to discuss them. It is interesting to note that both those cities have ordinances which have a greater restriction on the level of occupancy. However, the issue is that Eleanor feels that those ordinances have some concern. She has some concerns with them, which she expressed at one of our more recent meetings. So, we are in a situation where we will be without what conventionally in university towns are the two methods of controlling the degree to which neighborhoods have student rentals, and those would be the occupancy caps, which we had in the past, that were then replaced by the percentage caps. So those are typically how some measure of control is exercised. We don't have either. And so my concern was with 938 East Jefferson that, the fine-tuning and changes to the regulatory framework that we're working with had not, in the end, resulted in a situation where we weren't seeing high occupancy, in this case, a high occupancy addition. So as I said, I will be supporting this. I still have concerns about what might happen. It's there, I think staff and I had different views as to what might happen. As far as I can see, we just don't know, and we'll have to. And I would ask that we monitor the situation because it is a fragile one, and so I think we just need to see how the current controls we have in place, how effective they are, and respond as necessary to what we see happens out, in the future. But for now, I'm in support of, repealing the moratorium.
I was originally not in support of repealing, because I said we set a date of March and we should stick to it, but now so much time has passed, and by the time we get through the readings on this, it will practically almost be March. So I will be in favor of going ahead and repealing it. And to John's credit, I believe he did offer some suggestions and offered some very good suggestions, and I respect his urban planning background and the research he's done on this. Obviously, controlling rental numbers is something that deserves ongoing discussion by the council, and we'll have to continue getting thoughts on this issue, but I will be in favor of repealing it.
I think that our hands have been tied to some extent. I really applaud staff for all they have done to really attempt to get a grip on the situation. I applaud you, John, for what you have brought forward. I agree that we should repeal it for now and keep a close look and see then what can develop in the future.
One thing that's been apparent to me watching this process from the outside is that I think staff and council are on the same page with the majority of the neighborhood as to what we want to happen. And so being able to be proactive on the things that we can influence and control, I think, is really important. And when we're faced with something that isn't helpful to or is harmful to particular property owners, and we have the data from staff showing how other regulatory changes that we've already implemented seem to be improving the situation, I'm in favor of repealing the moratorium also.
I am as well, and I think to all the residents within this community that has voiced concerns for us to hold this, I think many of them understand where we are as a council and our inability to really create some things that can meet some of their needs. But this really is about the neighborhood and preserving it to be a neighborhood, and also ensuring that everybody is welcomed in this neighborhood. Homeowners, renters, they do include students, and so I think that's very important for us to, kind of state, and that everyone within this neighborhood is welcome. There are some things along the way that I think may become a burden in the neighborhood, and we're going to be faced with, and I think that's the time where come together, let us talk about it, let us figure out ways to create a solution in the moment. I do applaud John for his work and his research in bringing items to council for us to consider. I would say, don't stop now. Let's continue to figure out some things that we can do as a council, and it doesn't have to be regulatory. It could be, something different that we can even, begin to just as a concept to those developers or those landlords or even homeowners to consider when they're purchasing properties in that community. So I will vote to repeal this tonight.
I just want to end by thanking all the those who gave their thoughts on this. To Nancy. Nancy's been working in her neighborhood for 40 years, trying to preserve its character. So thank you to Nancy. Sarah Barron, I also wanted to thank her for meeting with me to talk about the strategies for how we can view the core neighborhoods as an opportunity for affordable housing. I'd reached out to the Affordable Housing Coalition years ago, and I think Sarah took it very seriously, and I really appreciate the support of the board of the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition for supporting the effort to try to provide ways for affordable housing to happen in the central neighborhoods.
Great. Roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Motion to accept correspondence.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mims, seconded by Salee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 13, approval of the 2021 to 25 consolidated plan. This is a resolution adopting Iowa City's 2021 to 2025 consolidated plan, known as City Steps 2025, authorizing the city manager to submit said plan, technical corrections, and all necessary certifications to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and designating the city manager as the authorized chief executive officer for the consolidated plan. Could I get a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Weiner. All right. Discussion?
Tracy Heishu with Neighborhood Development Services. I am the JV tonight. Our Neighborhood Services Coordinator had this presentation prepared. The doctor went home with flu, so you got me.
Okay.
If there's anything I can't answer, I will get that information back to you. But Erica was great. She prepared this before she left. So our consolidated plan for housing, jobs, and services to low to moderate income folks, we call it City Steps, is a 5-year plan. It's how we allocate our federal funds. We estimate about $1.1 million a year. Those funds have to be primarily used for people under 80% of median income or in your census tract that are eligible for, we call it LMI populations. This is a plan that would take us from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 25. There was a huge citizen participation process that we do every 5 years. We hired a consultant, Mullen and Lonergan Associates, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They take us through that stakeholder involvement. They go through a needs assessment, market analysis, strategic planning process. They did a survey of our our agencies regarding public facility needs. They come up with a plan. This is just the series of public input that was involved, and we have 2 HCDC members here tonight, too, that went through the process as well. City Steps is a great way where we consider what our priorities, how we're going to spend our federal dollars over the next 5 years. So the priorities for this upcoming 5-year period is the creation and preservation of affordable housing in both our rental and sales markets, housing and services for persons experiencing homelessness, public services for these folks, the non-homeless LMI persons. We always have public facility improvements that serve these populations, and economic and workforce development initiatives. Like I said, we get about $1.1 million a year in our resources for CDBG and home. Our set-asides, our council set-asides that you approve that people don't have to competitively apply for. So we have that 15% for public services, and actually we do have a separate allocation round for aid agencies. We have $75,000 that was in the last plan reserved for neighborhood amenities such as park shelters or sidewalk improvements. This will be used to help us with our climate action initiatives, and I believe for fiscal year 21 we're going to look to see how many trees we can plant in areas that lack tree canopies in our low to moderate income census tracts. We do have a housing and rehabilitation. Those dollars that we rehabilitate about 30 homes per year. We changed that 90,000. We still have that home set aside, but we expanded that to landlords. So if they want to improve their properties, it won't just be for owner-occupied households. That landlords can apply for those funds as long as they're assisting people below 60% of median income. We changed the set aside for CHODOs, those community housing development organizations. HUD rules require that 15% of our home entitlement must be used to benefit CHODOs. In Iowa City, we have 2. They're the Housing Fellowship and HACAP. So we already have to reserve 15%, and it has to go. If we don't allocate our money to a CHODO, then we just don't get those funds. And so Iowa City doesn't have access to it. So we're going to take that from the competitive pool, and now CHODOs can apply until we've committed the funds. Now, if they want to apply for more than that 15% set aside, then they'll have to come through the regular application cycle. We have $50,000 to support economic development initiatives. That will be in our funding for 2 years. If it's not used, then it'll free up for public facilities or housing applications. And then there's admin dollars, and that admin dollars pays for whatever surveys or plans that we need, such as the analysis to impediments to fair housing. We use our admin to pay for Mullen and Lonergan to do the consolidated plan, and then just for staff salaries to support the programs. Some of the additional changes that you'll see in this 5-year plan, we've been talking a lot about the aid agency process. In this plan, we took out we identified those legacy agencies, over that 5-year period, those are the only agencies that will be able to compete for funding, for legacy funding. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get the same amount throughout that 5 years, but those are your applicant pool for that 5 years. If you want to add an organization, then we'd have to go through we call it an action plan amendment. And then we plan on reviewing those every 5 years, because every 5 years priorities or different challenges emerge. So every 5 years you'll be reviewing those agencies that are allowed to apply for legacy. We still have that set aside for emerging agencies, so every year they'll compete. So if there's an agency that doesn't qualify legacy, they can still apply for emergency funds with our regular allocation fund. After you approve the plan tonight, we will start with our fiscal year 21 application process. So we'll open up the applications probably next week. Public facilities went from a minimum of $50,000 to $30,000, our preference. We instituted that, I think, the last 5 years ago. It's to get our agencies to start looking at their larger needs for capital improvements. For several years, we need new carpet for $5,000. We need a new bathroom for $10,000. And we really wanted agencies to start looking at how do we make an impact with the limited federal dollars we get. So, so we still have that preference for $50,000, but we'll allow applicants to apply for $30,000. There's also a bunch of policies that we have with it that are unsuccessful or delayed projects policy, our citizen participation plan. Administratively, we had those piecemeal. They came to council or HCDC at different times. Now we've just consolidated, updated them, and they're all part of the city steps plan. So it'll be helpful to us because that means they get updated every 5 years and they're not scattered. So people who are getting the money will understand what policies are relevant to them. HCDC asked us to include money or language on mobile homes, so we'll clarify in that plan that mobile homes are eligible housing type, and we do housing rehab on mobile homes. The homeless table, you did see there was a late information that we received, a late handout from a lot of our service providers, especially homeless service providers, and they asked for some technical corrections. And so we can do that administratively as long as it doesn't change the intent or it's nothing substantial. So we just got those today. So we will, if it's an edit on our end and it doesn't change substantially, we can make those edits. Do you pass those out or do they just get them? Okay. All right. So next steps. You have the public meeting. You can approve it tonight, you can tweak it, but we do need to approve, so we have this process that we go on where we get applications, we review them, we have to get our plan to HUD 45 days before July 1st, so everything is back down, so it's a pretty tight schedule from your approval until we allocate the funds. February 1st will be the date applications are due. HCDC will review in March. You'll get that plan, we call it the annual action plan, that lays out how we're actually going to spend the money for fiscal year 21. That'll come to you in May, and then we have to get it to HUD by July 1st. They go through their process with congressional approval, they approve it, and then we start spending the funds. The only thing HCDC recommended that wasn't incorporated into the plan was HCDC did recommend with our owner-occupied housing rehab to limit beneficiaries to 60%. Staff was recommending to keep it at 80% for several reasons. From fiscal year 18 through the first of fiscal year 20, we've completed 60 projects. 73% of those are for people below 60%. The rest were for people between that 60 to 80%. People at 80% still, I believe, needs assistance. So we looked at those people at 60 to 80% that had work done that we completed. Several were emergency projects as well as mobile home repair. If our job is to stabilize neighborhoods and that's where modest homes are, then I believe we need to keep that ability to assist people at 80%. For example, if you're a single mom with 2 kids, below 60, 80%, and you have a roof repair and windows for $25,000, it is going to be hard for you to afford that. So our program provides that assistance to stabilize our neighborhoods and to keep our modest homes in good condition, safe and healthy condition. So the recommendation is to keep the 80%. If you want to move it to 60%, you just have to make that recommendation, and we'll change it.
All right. Any questions for Tracy? I know I have some, but John, go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you were leaning forward. Well, thank you for presenting. I think you did good. So the priorities, I really appreciated hearing about the affordable housing for rental and owner-occupied. When it comes down to the legacy agencies, I understand that for 5 years, you know, if you're a part of that pool, then you'll remain a part of that pool. Well, in regards to emergent agencies, do they switch to legacy agencies?
No, every 5 year it'd be evaluated. So when we go through this process 5 years from now, we would look at those legacy agencies and we decide with HCD's recommendation if we want to remove one, add another one, or if we just want to add another one. They would determine that, and that would set it for the next 5 years.
And the emergent agencies, is that only how long can you remain within the emergent agency?
As we have set it up, you could continue on as emerging agency, but you'd be reevaluated every 5 years, and then it'd be up to HCDC and the council to move an agency if you wanted to.
Okay.
The problem we've had with ongoing, when we keep adding agencies to those legacy, it filtered down to the pot, and then you see those agencies who have historically gotten funding, and they're all doing good work, but you're going to see those agencies who have been relying on 40, 50, 60,000. When you keep adding the amount of agencies, they keep getting watered down to now they're getting 25, 30,000, and that's when you see them coming back and expressing frustration, just because when the aid agencies was set up, it was supposed to be like a stable funding source for those agencies that we rely on to provide services to primarily low to moderate income folks. So it's kind of a balance of that. It's providing funding stability for every 5 years, but allowing us every 5 years to reassess our priorities and determining what agencies should be included and which ones can still apply for emerging.
I don't know that I'll ask you to give any names of agencies that want to be in the legacy, but do you have any example? Well, just some any
sure
interest by individuals that want to be in legacy that aren't?
No one has called me expressly say that I want to be a legacy agency, but I'm sure they have to be, because I mean, if I was an agency that wasn't getting funded through legacy and I could get into that pot of funds and get 15 grand, I'm sure there's agencies out there that would like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're good. Thank you, Tracy. All right. Council discussion. Oh, please come up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Vanessa. V, Fix My Rise. As the chair, I've been part of this conversation for quite some time, and I really appreciate that you brought up the emerging and the legacy. This is something that we've really gone back and forth with quite a bit, because we really do value and recognize that our legacy organizations have been around for 30 or 40 years and, are really seeing the squeeze from, federal and state funding depleting and the need only rising over the last few years and really even over the last few decades, quite honestly. But to answer your question about the emerging funds, or the emerging organizations, we really looked at, we want to be able to support new things, right? That if there are new needs in the community that aren't being served by, kind of those legacy organizations, how can we help give them a leg up? And so it's actually not a ton of money. It's really just enough to kind of cover somebody at I think it was 15 hours a week for, minimum wage. Because we realize that these funds are very important because they're also, you can use them for operational expenses. And so it's just to really kind of give those organizations or ideas really kind of a seed money to just see how they would do. And we had some really great applicants. We had Solarize Iowa City. We've had some really interesting, I think particularly because climate change is such an issue, you're really starting to see organizations start to form and try and do their part too. But to answer the question about the 5 year, how do you become a legacy emerging kind of thing? We saw that as those emerging organizations started coming and applying for funds, if they were awarded and could show that they were stable, then we thought in 5 years that would be enough to say, maybe we could then consider weighing, our legacy, adding another organization or, changing things out. But so it's not black and white at all. It's sort of a kind of a clear as mud thing, but I think that we're really trying to balance and respect the work that's being done in the community. I know that there's been some folks have expressed, because there's such a small pool of legacy, or such a small pool of funding in some sense, to really get a lot of this work done, a lot of legacy agencies just they want to make sure that everything's coordinated. So if there is a need in the community, maybe there's an opportunity to coordinate with an organization as opposed to creating a new organization. So that's something that was sort of unexpected that I didn't really foresee. But anyway, I hope that answers some of your questions about emerging versus legacy. It's a little bit squishy, but I think that this will at least give folks some time, some 5 years, to feel like they're having some set funding, and at the same time recognizing that new needs come up in the community all the time. So hopefully we can help them out a little bit. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, V. Anyone else from the community? Council discussion?
It's an incredibly comprehensive report that for me really pointed out some of the areas of continued need that I think actually coincide very well with some of what Council has focused on up until now, and give us additional focus and direction going forward potentially. I mean, it's good. I think it's good to have had this enormous amount of community input, and it's a valuable document.
I maybe do have a question for you, Tracy. Other than the question of the 60% versus 80% LMI eligibility, do you believe that the changes that the organizations request in these late handouts are of that technical nature and it's not a problem for us to move forward tonight?
From what I read through, it was like on page 108, change this definition to this, or so I think, yes, I think they would qualify as administrative.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you see them? Okay, well, yeah, I think when I looked at them, yes, they looked at administrative.
And the changes, Tracy, also included more language or more in-depth language, including about mobile home owners. And
from what I understand, it was to clarify that mobile homes are a type of eligible activity, and that they provide affordable housing. So I think we can do that.
Good.
Any thoughts on the 60% versus 80%?
I would encourage you, we keep it to 80. I think as Tracy explained, like over 70%, 73% that they're doing it to go to those people below 60, but there's occasions that you get a few people in that range and you don't want to not be able to assist them if necessary. I mean, I think with the vast majority of it going to people below 60, it's clear that that's where the emphasis of staff is in awarding those funds, but to give that little bit of flexibility, I think, is always good.
I agree.
I would hate to see someone end up out of their house because they couldn't afford a relatively minor repair, and they're at the level between 60 and 80%.
All right. Roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes. Motion to accept correspondence.
Move.
Moved by Salee,
Seconded.
seconded by Burgess. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 14, council appointments. So we had 14A, Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2024. Discussion.
No gender requirement.
There is no gender requirement for
And
this
only
one.
one person applied.
Yeah, and only one person
It
applying.
was interesting, there was no gender requirement since there was one female and 3 males on there, but we have the one applicant, and he had been on it for just a short time before, but had to leave for the service, so I would be in favor of appointing him. Bryce
The issue is
Parker,
we're past the date on the gender.
Yes.
There was a gender
right.
requirement, but we're
Right.
past
Right
that
now,
date.
but not
so-
now, right.
It was after 12. Yeah.
Right.
December 30.
Yeah, I'm fine with Bryce.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll probably, as we've done in the past, kind of go through 14B and then just make one vote at the end. So 14B, Senior Center Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. There is, and I'll combine these if that's okay.
Yes.
And Senior Center Commission, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment through December 31st, 2020, And there is a,
Gender requirement, 1 female, 1 male, and 1 non.
okay.
I really want to appoint George Nelson. He been in Iowa City for 45 years. He been active member of the center since 2008. He taught different programs like in for about 3 years at the center, and I guess he's really will be a good add to this for the male.
I would like to support Paula Vaughn, who I think has done extraordinary work on the Housing and Community Development Commission, and I'm just really impressed with the work that she's done in the community.
I agree. She's been very active also on the League of Women Voters. She's dedicated and reliable in everything that she does, and I would highly recommend her.
The one, I think we've talked about this a little bit before. So there are 3 female applicants. So Linda has been in Iowa City for 36 months, and then Glenn has been in Iowa City for 2 years, but Paula's been here for 8 years.
8 years.
And so typically we've always kind of based some portions of our judgment on if they've had an opportunity to serve on a board or a commission. Paula certainly has, but given the 3 applicants, I think my mind goes to supporting Paula to be on there for various reasons that's already been stated. And then I would also propose Linda, even though she's been here 36 months. Just reading some of the things resonated with me, and I know that she has also been in conversation with Latasha with a real desire to be a part of the senior center, but that is kind of my recommendations.
Well, I support those 2 and George as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then the question is which one is filling the unexpired term and which 2 are taking the full terms?
I had Paula and George as the 2 3-year terms, and Linda serving and filling the vacancy in the unexpired.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, sure. Fine with me.
All right. Could I get a motion to appoint as John just stated?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Solis, seconded by Mims.
Is that for both the Board of Adjustment and the Senior Center?
Yes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Item number 15, announcement of vacancies previously stated. Parks and Recreational Commission, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment through December 31st, 2020. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, January 14, 2020. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term, January 1st through 2016 through December 31st, 2020. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment through June 30th, 2021. Vacancies will remain open until filled. All right. We are going to go to item number 17, because item number 16 typically has always been community comment if needed, if we didn't get past the 8 p.m.
And it's
And
the
our student
UISD
isn't here.
liaison.
Yes, and they're not here tonight. Yes, Austin, we miss you. All right, we'll go to number 17, the City Council information. We'll also do any boards and commissions.
Yes.
You can add that here as well if you have anything. And I think we'll start with our Mayor Pro Tem, Mazahir Salih.
Okay, I don't think I have any commissions that I want to report on, and also I don't think I have anything to report on. I pass.
And I'll go to the right, so we'll go this way.
I also have no boards or commission meetings to report on, and No community information.
All right.
Continue the trend. I have nothing to report on right now.
I'll just say I'm really excited for my first ICAD board meeting on Friday and my first UNESCO City of Literature meeting next week.
Oh, really?
That's
You
all I
already
have.
had one. Okay, good.
Nothing on the commissions. I did want to mention Maeve Clark's retirement. You know, in the recent past, on the 20th, it was a wonderful event. Glad I had a chance to make it. And on the 13th, ICAD, the Iowa City Downtown District, not ICAD, the Downtown District, is sponsoring an event at Big Grove from 6 to 7:30 titled Building Neighborhood Districts from the Ground Up. So, you know, on this topic of neighborhood development, that might be of interest to those who would like to attend that.
Okay. JEC has approved their budget for the coming year. That's the only thing I've had in terms of boards and commissions since our last meeting, so they're moving forward on that. Just kind of wish everybody a happy new year, and just while this is not new news, I just want to take a minute because it had connection with a number of people that we lost in the last few weeks. As many of you know, my husband spent 38 years in the University of Iowa Athletic Department, and we lost Bump Elliott and Hayden Fry in December. And, you know, as I thought about that and sitting here on City Council for the last 10 years, while we've always had the university here, a successful athletic department in the Big Ten makes a huge difference in the city. Makes a huge difference for the university. It attracts a lot of people to that university, both students, faculty, et cetera. And if it weren't for Bump Elliott and Hayden Fry, the University of Iowa Athletic Department would not be what it is today. Bump came here after incredibly successful time as a student athlete at Purdue and at Michigan. He was an assistant coach, and then he coached at Michigan and came here to be athletic director. And then, of course, 2 or 3 years after coming here, hired Hayden Fry. We lost Diane Finnerty. I'd known Diane off and on for a long time, and just a wonderful, wonderful human being that gave an awful lot to this community. And Jerry Lowenberg, who was the dean of the Liberal Arts College at the university for a long time. So I know there's plenty of other people that did wonderful things in this community and across the country in the last year, but those are just 4 that just kind of hit me in the last month that we've as we were going to some of these, my husband and I looked at each other and like, we're next. All these older, you know, a lot of these older folks are going. So I just wanted to just kind of give a public acknowledgement to those 4 who have contributed so much to the university and to the community. And other than that, to wish everybody a happy new year.
Thank you. Awesome. Yes, and I would agree to Bump Elliott and Hayden Fry, the work that they've done, and to all the other ones that have passed on before. So thanks for all their work here in Iowa City, and it's been very appreciative. I did have a committee meeting with the assessor office, Brad Comer, yesterday, and we did his evaluation as well as go over the budget and that type stuff for that department, and so that'll be coming before council to be finalized as well. Other than that, as far as commissions or committees that I'm a part of that is taking place, there's a few things coming up that I'll reserve until afterwards, and then I'll bring it back. The one thing that I did want to make mention of is I made a mistake and stated that I think I said that this was the first woman majority council, but this is the first 5 woman majority council. There was a woman majority council before where there were 4. Yes, so I wanted to make sure that I made that public correction. The other thing is I know that councilors have received from Jeff Mayor an invitation from the Mayor Innovation Project, and so I wanted to make sure that I just mentioned that. That invitation is for all councilors. The City of Iowa City is a part We have a membership with the MIP, and I do plan to go. And if you do need to have more information on that, you can certainly see me or Jeff about it, or go to the website. I did attend last year with Mayor Throgmorton. It is open to mayors and city council individuals. I found it to be very beneficial just as a counselor, and so definitely I think if anyone wants to go, you can certainly connect with Kelly, because she is the one that makes it all happen. And so I just wanted to talk, make sure that I mentioned that about the Mayor's Innovation Project. And if anybody...
I guess I think I had an email from Jeff saying that we can talk about it here, right, if we want to go. I replied to Jeff that I really was interesting to go, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah.
Sure. Where is it being held?
Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so anybody is welcome. And all right. We'll move on to city staff reports.
Just a quick thank you to you all for 3 meetings in 5 or so days, including a really long one on Saturday. Really appreciate it. You don't have to come back here for a couple weeks.
No, we need to go.
I'll have 2 reminders. One is the census is coming. April 1st is Census Day. We are continuing to prepare with our regional group, and everybody is continuing to work hard at getting the word out. And we'll give you more information as it comes. The second note is just that we had our second meeting of the Climate Action Commission as a full group. They're working together very well. A lot of really great discussion that'll be in the minutes for your upcoming review. And they did their first overview of the 100-day report, which seemed generally positive. Like I said, a lot of good discussion.
All right, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
About them.
Oh, I did, and they said no.
I'm
sorry.
Okay. All right. Just some nodding of heads.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So, moved by Mims. Second by Salee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.
Woo-hoo.